With the NFL preseason coming to a close and the Jets and other teams needing to cut down to their final 53-man roster, the Jets and everyone else are going to have a lot of big decisions to make. Should Kenny Yeboah make the roster? What happens with our backup quarterback situation? And what should the Jets do having the second waiver wire claim? Welcome in. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot today. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, we go live every Tuesday night, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock for our Talkin' Jets panel. Make sure you tune into that. Hang out with me, O'Leary, and Green Bean, and ask us all your Jet-related questions. But let's move on to our topics of the day. And we got a few of them. Now that the final preseason game is over for the New York Jets, we're going to have some big decisions to make regarding our roster and where we could possibly go with the players that could be cut from other teams across the league. So let's jump off there with some news today that the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Philadelphia Eagles completed a trade sending Gardner Minshew from the Jaguars to the Eagles for a 6th-round pick. Now, doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot for the Jets in terms of the Gardner Minshew trade, but Nick Mullins, former San Francisco 49er quarterback for the last 3 years, has been waived or cut by the Philadelphia Eagles. Currently, I don't believe he has cleared waivers as of yet. So if the Jets wanted to put in a waiver claim to pick up the signal caller as a backup quarterback with Mike White being questionable right now, they would inherit a 1-year, $1 million deal. According to reports, the Jets were considering signing Nick Mullins before he signed with the Eagles anyway, so this is something I think we should keep an eye on. Right now, it doesn't feel like the Jets have a rock-solid idea of who their backup's going to be. Mike White has played the best of the bunch. I don't expect us to hold on to Johnson, and then Morgan has kind of been a little lackluster since we've drafted him. So could the Jets possibly look at Nick Mullins here? Last year, he completed 64.7% of his passes, had 2,437 yards, 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So not exactly the best stat line, but also not the worst. I mean, he's at least got NFL reps. He knows the system. He could at least answer some of those kind of questions that rookies may not, come up with. What are you seeing this way? What do you think about this? I think Mullins is a pretty interesting option in that respect. So I do think that is an area that the Jets could go. And he's only 26 years old. So potentially if he plays well, hopefully he doesn't see the field. I don't want to see him see the field because that means Wilson's not seeing the field. Then maybe he could become a trade chip. Who knows? But I would be on board with Mullins at this point for the backup quarterback situation. Then tight end wise, we're looking at Kenny Yeboah. He had a big game yesterday. 4 receptions, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns, including a game-tying or setting up a game-tying attempt on a 49-yard touchdown at the end of regulation. So really exciting. I mean, you got to dial it back because you're not really going to – you don't want to factor in a 49-yard touchdown on a Hail Mary in the 3rd preseason game to be like a really meaningful stat. But it's interesting because this was a very high priority undrafted free agent this year. He was really exciting coming out of Ole Miss, and it's someone that I think Douglas would like to keep on this roster. Now, he did have that fumble in, game 1 against the Giants, so I think there's probably some good and bad that you could kind of say with Yeboah. If you had told me before this game last night that he was going to get cut, I'd probably believe it, but after last night's showing, maybe it's not so bad and is worth considering a little bit more. He got the game ball, obviously, at the end of the game from Salah in the locker room. And this is interesting because I have been on the Chris Herndon train for like 3 years now. I was really excited when we got him as a rookie. I had him in my rookie draft in my Dynasty League, and I was really pleased with what I got out of him that year. And then the next 2 years happened. It's just been disappointing year after year. So I keep wanting to hope that Herndon's going to turn into the player that I want him to be, but I just don't know if that's really in the cards at this point. I don't have a whole lot of confidence when I see him get the ball thrown his direction. Now, I was saying before training camp started that I think Herndon could be one of those bubble fringe players. Douglas did not bring in Herndon, so he doesn't have any loyalties to him. I do think, based on what we've seen in the preseason, Tyler Kroft, the tight end we brought in from Buffalo, is probably going to be tight end 1. So if you pencil him in over there, you have the blocking tight end, I guess, that could be Ryan Griffin. Again, injuries not always available. And then you have Herndon, which you're just hoping to get some kind of spark from. Wesco is moving over to the fullback position, so you really have just those three guys plus Yeboah. Yeboah, for me, based on everything that we've seen from him in college most recently, and then just from this last preseason game, I would probably consider cutting either Griffin or Herndon in this position, just because Yeboah at least kind of has hope to get better. I don't feel after two lackluster seasons with Herndon that I can really put too much stock into him. Now, that said, I hope he does really well if he stays on the team, but I just, if we're looking across the board here, Yeboah is someone that I think should probably at least be held on to. If they cut him, they're going to try and stash him on the practice squad, but I don't know if he'd actually make it to the practice squad. I think someone else will scoop him up before he clears waivers. So some other options that you can kind of look at, especially with teams cutting players. Now, the Jets have the second waiver wire claim because we were the second worst team in the league this past year. That means any team that cuts a player, the Jets get the second crack at these players. The Jaguars obviously get the first crack at them. One player that I'm kind of keeping an eye on for this tight end situation is Zach Ertz. If he is cut by the Philadelphia Eagles, it will save them $8.5 million. And as I've talked about in previous videos, the Eagles are kind of right up against the cap for this year and for next year. So I could see a situation where Ertz is moved on from in Philadelphia, and his former VP of Player Personnel, Joe Douglas, over here in MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, could possibly bring in Ertz as a potential safety blanket for Zach Wilson. So that's kind of the direction I would like to see the Jets go. Like maybe Ertz is our starting tight end. Croft, who has had injury issues in the past, could be tight end 2. And then maybe you move on from Herndon and Griffin, and you have Yeboah as your third tight end in terms of depth there, and hopefully high upside as players get a little bit older, and you just kind of give him a little bit more playing time, and he gets more comfortable in the NFL. Now, that being said, Ertz is 31 years old, or going to be 31, close to 31. So how much more serviceable years do you have out of him? He's only on a 1-year contract, so you're going to have him for that 1 year, and then you have to either sign him after the season or let him walk. Aside from that, you're probably looking edge rusher and cornerback. I do expect the Jets to be pretty active in those two areas. Maybe not crazy active in the cornerback situation, but I do think the edge rusher situation could get pretty interesting. Derek Barnett, Dante Fowler, Chandler Jones is kind of a little bit of a pipe dream. And then Jalen Smith as a potential outside linebacker from Dallas is another interesting option. He's really young. I want to say he's 26 years old, and he's got a pretty good amount of contract left. You're talking, I think it's like $7 million is his cap hit this year if he were traded. And then he's got, I think it goes up to like $12 million over the course of the next 4 years. But no guaranteed money beyond this year. So you could cut him after this season if you didn't like what you saw. And based on everything we've kind of gotten out of our linebacker room and getting someone who is a really high-valued pick in Jalen Smith might not be the worst way for the Jets to go. So, guys, let me know what you think down below. What do you think of Mullins? What do you think of Yeboah? What do you think of the whole tight end position in general? Do you want to go after someone like Zach Ertz? Do you think he will be cut? Do you think he will need to be traded for? What do you think about the edge rusher situation? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, go Jets.